Welcome to the Reach Podcast with your teacher, Pastor Taylor Gabbert.
Weekends is of your entire life when you are younger is the weekend that your parents go out of town and they leave you alone. It's a great weekend. And you're just like, yeah, eating whatever I want, cereal straight from the box, probably not going to wear pants. It's going to be great. What's the last thing your mom says before they leave? This house better be clean when I get back. Seems like an easy task. I mean, the fact is, it's clean when she left. They're only going to be gone for like 2 days. It's like, how bad could it really get? Right? Well, the time kind of blurs together between like cheese puffs and chocolate milk. And then all of a sudden you get that text that's like, we're 15 minutes from home and the house better be clean. And you look around and you're like, it's only been 48 hours and I have at least 6 hours of cleaning to do. I'm dead. And then you start panicking, right? You're just throwing stuff everywhere, like kicking stuff under beds. Like, there's no way, right? And before you can even really make a dent, mom's home. You try to paint the best picture you can, right? You're just like, hey, it's not that bad. That was there. The dishes were already like over the top before you left. But at that point, what happens? There's consequences. It's too late to get ready. We're in a series on parables, and we are looking at Jesus' own words on what it means to follow him, what it means to be a Christian, what it means to be a disciple, what it means to have humility. What are the things that Jesus actually taught and showed us? Tonight, we're going to be in Matthew 25. And Jesus is going to be talking about why you need to prepare for his return. Why you need to get ready. Why there's something that you should be doing right now. And my main question for you tonight is, are you ready? Are you ready for the return of Christ? Are you in a position that is preparing always and awaiting his return? See, getting ready, it isn't easy. Getting ready takes some level of effort. It's not an automatic. It's not just kind of a claim you make, right? See, if you were preparing the house before your mom got home, then even if she didn't let you know she was almost there, whenever she showed up, there wouldn't be consequences. You would be ready. Look with me, if you will, Matthew 25, starting in verse 1. Then the kingdom of heaven will be comparable to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the groom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were prudent. For when the foolish took their lamps, they did not take extra oil with them. But the prudent ones took oil in the flask with their lamps. Now while the groom was delaying, they all became drowsy and began to sleep. But at midnight there finally was a shout, "Behold, the groom, come out to meet him." Okay, I'm not going to lie. The first time I read this parable, I was like, I have no idea what's going on. This is a weird parable. And it's because there's a lot of cultural emphasis that we have to understand what's going on here. The first thing you need to know is about wedding processions. See, in ancient Israel, a wedding procession was when the wedding party, late at night, went together as a group to where the festivities would be. And people would join along the way. Everyone who was invited. It was an exciting time. They were anticipating the wedding. They were headed somewhere together. There's also laws in certain periods and certain times and places where to move about a city, you had to have a lamp. You had to take this lamp with you. This isn't like a, genie lamp, right? It's just a regular old light lamp, right? And the reason for this was, A, it it showed that you weren't doing something illegal, because nobody who's doing something nefarious is carrying around a light with them, right? And B, it identified you essentially as somebody moving, traveling. It was a way to identify that you were a citizen, that you were where you were supposed to be. The light and the lamps, there wasn't enough oil to get you on a really far journey. So you couldn't have come from somewhere way out. You had to be close, and you had to be going pretty much from A to B. That's what the lamps were for. It's kind of like an ancient ID form, if you will. It also ended up being the ticket into the party, right? No one just kind of passing by could just jump into the procession. They didn't know where it was going, how far it was going to go, and when they got there, if they didn't have their lit lamp, they were considered not to have been originally invited, not know the bride and the groom, right? So that's the picture that we're looking at. Now, continue with me in verse 7. Then all those virgins got up and trimmed their lamps. But the foolish virgins said to the prudent ones, "Give us some of your oil, because our lamps are going out." However, the prudent ones answered, "No, there most certainly would not be enough for us and you too. Go instead to the merchants and buy some for yourselves." But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the groom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding feast, and the door was shut. Yet later the other virgins also came, saying, "Lord, Lord, open up for us." But he answered, "Truly I say to you, I do not know you. Be on the alert then, because you do not know the day nor the hour." Okay, so we have these 10 virgins, right? That's the parable. It's the parable of the 10 virgins. And the interesting thing is why we have this group of people. There's two things that we see here. One is that these 10 virgins seemingly all have the same connection with the bridal party. They're all at the very least aware that there's a wedding, right? They all know that there's a wedding. They're all together, and they're blending in with each other, right? Even the name virgins implies that there's no discernible difference between the 10 of any of them being more or less morally good, right? It's not like 5 virgins and 5 lepers, 5 virgins and 5 tax collectors. They're all seemingly the same. There's one noticeable difference: their preparation. And with their preparation, something is revealed. The difference between one group that just knows about the party and wants to get into the party, and one group who knows the bride and the groom, who knows intimately who they're celebrating and has made preparations so that they won't miss out. They don't want to get left behind because it's more important to them than just getting into the party, than it's just making it past the door. Now, it would be easy to look in this parable and see a parallel with the oil and the Holy Spirit. Why? All of these people are aware of the wedding. All of these people are aware of the groom. All of these people are aware of the oil or the Holy Spirit. But only some of them have taken time to prepare themselves in a relationship. Only some of these people have done the necessary preparations that they are ready for the procession. The others have had only a shallow interest. They're aware, they know it's a thing, but they're not interested enough that they've actually committed, that they've actually prepared, that they've actually gotten ready. Something is deficient in the preparation of that second group. And we see that the group, they fall asleep. It says there's a delay, and they fall asleep, and then midnight comes. All right, all 3 of these things are emphasizing the same point: just how unexpected this is. Okay, first of all, is Jesus actually delaying his return? No. He's going to come at the exact moment he's supposed to come. He's going to come at the exact moment that the Father has for him to come. It only looks like a delay from our perspective. So in this story, as the delay is perceived on the side of these 10 women, they all fall asleep. It's important that they all fall asleep because the point is not that some of them were lazy and didn't stay alert in that way. The point is we're all doing that. We're all just kind of going through life, going through the motions. So what's the difference between Christians and non-Christians? It's not that Christians are literally just like standing in their bedroom at night like, I'm ready. Come in any second. That's not it. Everyone's just going through the motions of their life, but some of us have prepared for Jesus to return. Both those groups fall asleep in the delay, but only one group is prepared. And then midnight. Midnight is a literary term in the Bible that means in the darkest moment of the night when it was the least expected. The picture we're getting here is that you are not going to know when he comes. So unless you've already prepared, you're going to miss out. It's going to be too late. Now, why don't the 5 that are ready, why don't they help? Because your salvation and your faith, it can't be borrowed. No one's going to get you into heaven on their +1. The reality is, you are the one that has to prepare your heart, your soul. You're the one that has to have a connection with the groom. Because at the last second when the trumpet blows, you're not going to be able to go, Jesus, please enter my heart and thank you for forgiving me all my sins. Bam, made it. It's not going to be like that. The Bible doesn't say magic words, just make sure you get the phrase out of your mouth, you're in. That's not what this looks like. Some of these people were prepared with a relationship. Are you waiting to hear the trumpet blast in the sky before you get ready? I want to ask you the same question that I've asked in every one of these parable sermons. What in your life looks like you're becoming more Christ-like? What in your life says that you're actually a follower of Jesus? Because if the answer is any version of, well, there was this moment where I prayed this prayer, that's not in the Bible. That's not how it works. Now, there is a moment where if you are saved, that moment has occurred somewhere. My point is, your certainty about your salvation is in how your life reflects Christ now. It's not looking back on that prayer. I can't remember if I was sincere about yesterday by the time I get to today. You telling me you're going to look back to when you were 7 years old and be like, yeah, definitely meant it. That's not the way it works. Getting ready takes some effort. It's not just saying magic words. It's about being a disciple. You know, James basically says, if your hope is in these magic words that you said at some point, if you acknowledge that God exists, you know of him, he says, great job. The demons know that God exists. If your faith is that the Christian religion is in fact correct, James says, yeah, the demons know that Christianity is true. That doesn't do anything for you. That is not saving faith. It's about being a disciple. It's not so easy that you can just do nothing and assume the title. But it's also not so hard that you should just quit trying. Okay. Let's picture a girl. And tonight, she's getting picked up on a date. So this girl, what happens? We all know she's excited. She goes up in her room, and she's getting ready. Of course, in real life, not for my illustration, there's no way she's ready on time. That's not the point. The point is, she's excited, and she anticipates that someone's coming for her. She knows this person. So it's easy to be excited about him. She wants to prepare. What if instead of truly knowing him, she sat in her room and she said, you know what? I just really think this guy's probably going to be harsh and critical, and he's going to judge me, and he thinks that he deserves me getting ready. So, you know what? I'm going to put on pajamas and go watch cartoons till he gets here. Right? And so she goes downstairs. She hasn't prepared because he doesn't deserve that. And then what happens? He shows up. He's wearing a tuxedo because that's what guys do. And as soon as he comes in, she's like, you know, I just really felt like you were going to be too harsh, so I didn't get ready at all. We know something's wrong with that picture. We know that the problem is she didn't know who she was waiting on. She wasn't aware of this guy in a way that she could be excited about him. Look with me at verse 14. For it is just like a man about to go on a journey who called his own slaves and entrusted his possessions to them. To the one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, each according to his own ability, and he went on his journey. The one who had received the 5 talents immediately went and did business with them, and earned 5 more talents. In the same way, the one who had received 2 talents earned 2 more. But he who received 1 talent went away and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, after a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. The one who received the 5 talents came up and brought 5 more talents, saying, Master, you entrusted 5 talents to me. See, I have earned 5 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter the joy of your master. Also, the one who had received 2 talents came up and said, Master, you entrusted 2 talents to me. See, I have earned 2 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter the joy of your master. Do you know why it's not hard to get ready for Jesus' return? Because God has already given you what you need to do it. God has already blessed you and equipped you to prepare for his return. Do you know why he didn't give 5 talents to the servant he gave 2 talents to? Because that servant couldn't handle 5. He could handle 2. See, here's what happens. We kind of end up on one end of 2 spectrums. Either we think, he's trying to give me more than I can handle. No, he's giving you exactly what you could handle. He's giving you exactly what you need to handle it. Or we think, well, I really just feel like I could handle a lot more and God isn't giving it to me. Yet again, no. If you haven't gotten more, you know why? It's because God hasn't seen you be faithful with what he has given you. You don't get to jump to the more. You have to start with the little. You have to be faithful with what you have. And what you have was already given to you by the Father. Picture this. He didn't say, hey, go make 5 talents. Get on with it. He said, here's 5. Now go to work. And here's 2. Now go to work. Here's 1. Go to work. Everybody got something. And everybody got something according to what they could handle. The talents, it's money, right? It's money. It's convenient for us in English that it is the word talent because it's an easy translation for the illustration, which is, what has God given you to invest? Has he given you influence? Has he given you money? Has he given you the ability to teach or serve or love? Not everyone in this room is the same level of intelligence. Right? Whatever level that you've been given, though, you've been given that to serve God. He wants you to take whatever talents he's given you and invest them. What are you investing them in? What did these masters do? Or I'm sorry, what did these slaves do? They all did their master's work. Jesus was in the business of making disciples, which means everything you've been given is his investment in you to go forth and make disciples. That's the whole point. He wants you to invest what you've been given so that you can do his work and produce disciples for his return. Look in verse 24. Now the one who had received the 1 talent also came up and said, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you did not scatter seed. And I was afraid, so I went away and hid your talent in the ground. See, you still have what is yours. But his master answered and said to him, You worthless, lazy slave, did you not know that I reap where I did not sow and gather where I did not scatter seed? Then you ought to have put the money in the bank, and on my arrival I would have received my money back with interest. The reason it's easy for that girl to get ready for that date is not because the act of getting ready for a date, which we all know is very cumbersome, is so easy. It's because she's excited about who's coming. The reason it's easy to get ready for Jesus to come back is because you know him. You're excited about him. This third slave, he didn't know the master. How do I know? He accuses the master of being unfair. Notice what he's saying here. He's saying that he believed that if he invested this money and he made more, that the master would come back and take what he had earned, what was rightfully his. The reason he hides the money isn't because he's afraid of losing the money. He hides the money because he doesn't think that he should have to earn money for the master. It's his money. He says, here, you can have back what's yours, what you gave me. You still have what's yours. Right? He accuses him of being someone who takes other people's work. You know what he's missing? Everybody in this story only has what they have because the master gave it to them. Nothing you have is because you are so great at something inherently. You got everything you got from God, and if he's the one that gave it to you, then he deserves it back. He deserves it back with a return on his investment. And the master, it's interesting, if you just read this real quick, it sounds like the master is agreeing with what's said about him. You knew that I was a man that took what wasn't mine, and no, that's not what he's saying. He's saying it more like this. Oh, you knew this about me. You knew that I was going to take what was rightfully yours. And then what he says is, not only did you know something that wasn't true to me, but if you thought there was going to be consequences, why would your answer have been to do nothing? Think about that for a second. Think about how many people in our culture, in our society, in our world are mad at God because he's so unfair. He's so unjust. And their response is to do nothing. If God's really that unfair, you better get to work. The good news of the gospel is we don't work for our salvation. But if you think that, why would your answer be, I'm just going to sit here? It's not going to pay off either way. That's what the master says to him. He says, you thought that I was this man, that I was this person. You didn't know me. And your response to thinking I was that person was to do nothing. If you know the Father, you know that he deserves everything. He gave you what you have. And what he wants to give you for your investment, for your time, for your effort, is he wants to give you eternal joy with him. He wants to invite you into his kingdom. He gave the other 2 slaves more than what they had. And then he invited them to be with him eternally. That's what God is trying to do with you. He wants you to be faithful with what He's given you so He can give you even more, and you'll be with Him forever. What are you doing with what God has given you? Being ready for Jesus requires some effort. And yet, He's given you everything you need to be successful. It's not so easy you can't do anything. It's not so hard that you should quit. He's already equipped you for it. Not only that, but it's vital. It's vital that you prepare. What happened when Mom got home? Consequences. There were consequences. And while the guy that picks up the girl on the date might be willing to stand there and have an awkward conversation with the parents for 15 minutes, that's not the way the end of the world's going to go. There's no extra time. You can't wait to figure it out at the end. Look in verse 28. Therefore, take the talent away from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has more shall be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who does not have, even what he does have shall be taken away. And throw the worthless slave into the outer darkness. In the place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Okay, this phrase is weird. It says, to the one who has, more will be given, and to the one who doesn't have, even that will be taken away. Okay, that's like got to be the most unfair verse in the Bible, right? Like that doesn't even make sense to us. You just read that and you're like, what is happening? Here's what that verse means. To the one who has me, even more will be given. And to the one who doesn't have me, everything he has is nothing. Everything he has is going to burn and disappear and be worthless. Having things in this earth is to have nothing. We focus on what is unseen because the unseen is eternal, but the seen is temporary. Do you understand the consequences? Like the analogy of Mom coming home, like that's not the level of consequence of when you're not ready for Jesus' arrival. When you're not ready and Jesus comes back, you are eternally separated from Him. Hell's not going to be a party. Hell's going to be a place with weeping and gnashing of teeth. It's going to be a place where there is no satisfaction, no fulfillment. Look in verse 31. But when the Son of Man comes in His glory and all the angels with Him, then He will sit on His glorious throne. I want to pause on that verse and I want you to hear this. Jesus is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, whether you believe it or not. And there will be a day when everybody will face that fact. You can admit it now and receive the saving mercy of the King, or you can admit it then and receive justice. But you will know the truth. Look at verse 32. And all the nations will be gathered before Him, and He will separate them from one another, just as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And He will put the sheep on His right, but the goats on His left. Okay, what's happening here is that sheep and goats are often herded together. Often to the unfamiliar, they even kind of look similar. They intermingle. They can be taken care of the same way. They blend in. It's the same with the 10 virgins. We didn't know the difference between them externally except for their preparation. Here is the reality. You know how many people come to church and are not sheep? There's a good chance that there are people who are not sheep in this room right now. And that's a sad reality because they look to us externally just like everybody else. They mingle with us. They seem to be similar. But someday the shepherd who can tell the difference, he will divide. Look at verse 34. Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundations of the world.' The good shepherd divides the flock, and then the king says to the sheep, 'Come and inherit the kingdom.' And the goats are cast out. Let me ask you this. It's the same question that when we look at the worthless slave and he says, I thought you were cruel, so I did nothing. Why? If you can look in the Bible and you can see the consequence of hell and the reward, the inheritance of eternal glory and salvation in heaven, what exactly are you waiting for? Why are you gambling with this? Why are you not willing to look inside of your heart and ask yourself, is there anything about me that resembles Jesus? Are you prepared for His return? The decision to prepare for His return is vital. It's the only important decision you will ever make. There's nothing else. Are you ready, or are you just waiting around? Don't take this as something that's easy, something you just claim last second. You're not going to be a goat and just I'm a sheep, just slip onto the other side. The chasm is going to be great between the two groups. And the shepherd knows the sheep from the goats. It's not that easy. You have to do something. You have to prepare for this. It's also not that hard. Why? Because God has already given it to you. He's already made it available to you. The fact that you're sitting in this room right now is the evidence of that. You have access to the true message of the Word of God. This is vital. All eternity hangs in the balance. Are you ready?
Hey guys, this is Philip Jackson, pastor to young adults at Evergreen Baptist Church. I want to invite you to come to Reach. We meet every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. at Evergreen Church in South Tulsa, just east of Mingo on 111th Street. The mission of Reach Tulsa is to cultivate a young adult community that's defined by real transformation and the sincere pursuit of a godly life through training in biblical disciplines, personal development, and intentionally transitioning into independence as mature members of the body of Christ. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like and subscribe to our content. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Reach Young Adult Ministry is a part of Evergreen Baptist Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. For more information and additional lessons, please visit our website, evergreenbc.org.